feel like I had to get to know somebody else. I kind of just wanted to be alone. But that's not how life really works out. You know, even if you want to be alone, somebody eventually comes along and says hello, and you say hello back, and it goes from there. You know, but I encourage anyone who is going through a divorce, even if it is temporarily, to reach out to either a really good friend or a therapist and make sure that somebody's there at the other end of that line if you need them.
There's also...
Because trying to be... Yes, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, to add to that, there's, with being in the life coaching industry, there are life coaches that specializes in divorce that can help you get through it as well. So just putting that out there. So if you need somebody, if therapy is not your thing, or if you don't have a friend or family member to lean on, there are life coaches out there as well that specializes in divorce that can help you through the process and be there as your coach through the whole situation.
So that's really good information, because I didn't actually know that.
Yeah.
No one ever told me that life coaches do stuff like that. I always thought the life coaches just helped you with like your confidence and your love and you know, but let me tell you, I will say that, like, Sheena ran this program last summer, under My Stable Mind, under her self-love club, which you can find on Facebook. But we did like all these different like activities. And it taught me so much about myself that I didn't realize, like, some of the trauma I still harbored from my marriage and divorce. You know, you don't realize how it affects you until you go through it. And eventually, like I said, it'll fade. It'll take time, but eventually you're not as lonely anymore. And eventually, you know, the phone calls from the ex, they don't come as frequently, and you're able to say, hey, no, you know, like, I remember the turning point for me and the loneliness and all that, and the, you know, no longer accepting his phone calls and being able to move forward with my life was at the point that I realized that I had already began to speak to someone else. Sheena's brother, actually. So so when I started speaking to him, I told him up front everything wrong with me. I was like, I'm crazy, I'm a brat, I'm spoiled, you know, I'm always going to get my way. I'm never going to give up my dreams for somebody else again. You know, I don't care what you want out of life, but I'm not going to come home and clean and cook every night, and I'm going to work, and I'm going to chase my career, and I'm going to start a magazine. And I was just like, all these things. And he was just like, okay. And so I was like, well, I'm also good at this, and I'm also good at that. And I tried so hard to make him be like, you know what? You're too much. Because that's how I felt inside. I felt like I was too much for the last guy that I was with, so I must just be too much as a person.
No, you're not too much.
But that's the big thing.
For somebody. You just wasn't right for him.
Yep, and that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Like, divorce doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It means that you weren't with the right person. You know, divorcing someone doesn't mean that he was a bad person. It doesn't mean he was a bad person because he couldn't be with me. It means that me and him were not compatible. And we tried and it didn't work, and we both had to move on. You know? Some divorces are harder. We didn't have to fight over kids. I do have a stepson. I still love my stepson. I still speak to my stepson. I will never stop. You know, because that's still my stepson. However, he's grown. He was grown pretty much from the beginning. He was 16. So, you know, it's a little bit different of a situation. We weren't fighting over kids, and we weren't fighting over belongings. We were just separating, and we were just divorcing. Same. So, you know, and sometimes that's even the harder part. You know, people are like, oh, well, you didn't have to go to court for this and for that. You're right. We didn't fight over all those items. But that makes me feel like nothing was worth saving. And that's where the depression kicks in. You know, that's where that happens. Do you have anything
Yeah, I
else
agree.
you want to add about how you felt at the end of your divorce?
Happy, relief. I would say,
I understand.
I felt like I gave it my best shot, and the whole acceptance thing, and I accepted. I wasn't in denial that it was over. I felt wholeheartedly that I gave it my best shot. I did everything that I was supposed to do. I did everything right. I stopped blaming myself for it not working and just accepted that it's not going to work out. And if I'm going to be happy that it had to happen. So I just was taking care of myself. And one thing you have to do with going through the divorce, you have to take care of yourself emotionally and physically, because it can overwhelm you. It can shut you down if you let it, overtake you. Just stay positive. That's what I want to say too. Just stay positive through the whole process. Stay positive. Positive thinking is key. But yeah, at the end, I was just like you said, you were just over it. I was just over it. I was just ready to put it past me and get the process over with. But with him, like, he was, you know, taking his time with the process. Me, I was like, okay, we're separated. Let's get to file this paperwork. Let's get the divorce. Let me change my name. Let me just shut this door, because this door is opening and is staying open. I don't like it. I just ready to, move past it so I can start my healing process. So that's how I was. I was just pushing for everything. Lo and behold, didn't know that he was, like, in his mind, he wanted to separate for us to just take some time, and he was going to try to work his way back in. In my mind, I was like, I want this divorce. I don't need you in my life no more. You're on going on my block list. So, we just had a whole different things, different mind things, as well as, mind thinking. I can't get my words right, but my as the ending of it went. But I just want to say, just stay positive. Don't be petty. We didn't have kids either in the process, so it was a simple divorce process to get it over with. But we did have, he had a son, I had a son, so there was, like, stepkids involved. Our kids grew up for a long time being brothers, so it was that hard. I think that was, like, one of the main reasons why I dragged my feet with separating for so long, even though I wasn't happy because of the kids. I didn't want to separate the kids, so it's like, but at the end of the day, like, at some point, you have to put yourself first. You have to put yourself at the top priority, because I started seeing that my unhappiness was affecting my son. And once I seen that he was being affected by me being miserable, that's when I was like, hey, I got to go. Like, we can't continue like this. So I was
Right.
ready for, that's when that whole acceptance thing come in. Like, I'm going to accept this now, because you're not just affecting my happiness, you're affecting my son. And it's not fair to either one of us. So I'm going to accept that we don't need to be together, and we need to move on. Let's start this process. Let's start this separation. And, we can be better off as individuals, and we don't need to be together. And sometimes it be like that. That's why you have to accept the fact that, hey, as individuals, you just better off separated. And then you open the door, open that way for somebody who you're supposed to be with, who can make you happy, to come into your life. Because once you're stuck with someone that you're not supposed to be with, the person that you are supposed to be with has no way in. So you have to accept the fact that you're not supposed to be with that person, and you have to let it go. The whole thing is, just letting it go. It's hard. I mean, it's hard in the motherfucker. Sorry for my language, but it's hard as shit. Because you feel like you
It's
feel like
beyond
you got
hard.
to hold on, because you don't want something else in your life that you're failing at. But you have to learn to let it go. You have to learn.
And that,
And it's
I mean,
good to have a
honestly, guys, that's
routine.
honestly one of the hardest things to do is to finally make that decision,
Yeah, it is.
because most people are divorced. Like, most people know that they're going to get divorced like a year before it actually happens. Like, they're in their mind at some point that other person says that one thing that digs so deep that you're just like, this isn't going to work. I'm never going to be able to stay here. And I mean, that's what happened to me. So I just assume that happens to everyone. Did that
I,
happen to you? Was there like that one final bing that you were like, you know what? That's it. It's never going to work.
you know what? I kind of agree with that because towards the end, I would say a year, maybe it's been more than a year that we were doing this tit for tat. Like we would be okay for like a couple weeks, and then we'll have like an argument or something, and then he'd be like, I think we should separate, and then I'd be like, okay, and then like a couple of days later, he's like, let's work it out. Like we wouldn't even make it a week, and then I'll be feeling guilty, and I'll be like, okay, let's work it out. But after going through that for like so long, the tit and tat and back and forth, I'm like, it gets old. So yeah, I knew it was coming to an end way before it was ended. That whole last year was miserable for me. Like we was doing this tit for tat, going back and forth. I didn't like who I was becoming. I didn't like who he was becoming, or I should say I was seeing him for what he truly was. My eyes was opening to a lot of things. So that eye opener and going through the tit for tat, going back and forth, all the pettiness is like, I don't deserve this. So it's like at some point, you just step up and leave. So that last time it was like, we should separate. And I was like, yeah, let's separate. And I went through with it. And then like a couple of days later when he do his same game that he did when he wanted to, continue to work it out, I was like, no, not gonna work it out. I'm moving out. And then when he seen that I was serious, that's when he got mad and he left. He left the whole apartment. I mean, he stopped coming home after he see that I was serious about we ending this. Like I'm serious about this separation. I don't want to work it out anymore. We're playing this game and it's not working. So when he knew that I was like he couldn't push me over anymore and he couldn't talk me into staying, that's when he was like, all right, she's serious, and he stopped coming home. But that just made it easier for me to be like, all right, I'm gonna just, go my separate ways. And like I said, I was packing up. To be honest, I started packing up and moving my stuff out of the apartment way before we officially separated. It was like 3 or 4 months before we officially separated. I had got a storage facility, and I started with my son's stuff, and I would just take little stuff. I was like, put everything that you're not using or you don't want in your room for everyday use, start packing up into a box so I can move it out. And I told him that I was decluttering the apartment so it'd be easier to keep clean, something. But I was really just moving all my stuff out. So when it was time for me to find my own place or to officially say I'm done, um, I wouldn't be much. My plan was for him to come home and I would be gone because I didn't want to go through the back and forth. Um, it was just
Right.
getting to be too much going through the back and forth, him trying to get me to stay. Plus he would always say something stupid like, oh, if you leave me I would commit suicide because I can't live without you, and that would like guilt trip me into like staying or trying to make it work, or I'm breaking up the family, the stupid lines that people say to try to mind control you. So I didn't want to have to go through all of that because I was already ready to leave. So when he finally came, we had this stupid argument over what we argued over. Like, it was so stupid. Something, oil change or something with the car, something real stupid. And he was like, I think we should separate it. It came out of nowhere. It didn't make any sense. And then I was like, you know what? That's my opening. Like, okay, we're going to separate. You said it, and you said it for the last time, because we go